Welcome to your complete beginner's guide for the DJI AVATA 2. In this video, we're going to go through everything that you need to know about this drone to get up and flying fast, flying some FPV style footage. Now, whether you are a complete beginner to FPV to even drone flying, or you're a seasoned pro, this video is going to go through everything that you need to know about this drone, how it works, and how to actually get some good footage when you're out flying with it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. So before we jump into everything about this drone, let me just give you a quick outline of what you're gonna learn in this video. First, we're gonna go over the drone itself, and I'm gonna show you everything that's on the drone. We're gonna go over the controller, and in this video, I'm just gonna be focused on the motion controller. I think this is the best way to get up and running fast with the AVATA 2. Now I'll go over everything on the goggles, and then we'll dig into DJI Fly and the whole UI experience when you have the goggles on and you're flying in this first-person format. And then after we have a complete understanding of how to use this drone, we'll take it off, do the first flight, and show you exactly how to use this drone when it's in the sky, how you use the motion controller, and how you get some good looking footage. And then at the end of this video, we'll dig into some cinematic techniques on how to get better footage flying FPV, and also how you can control your footage to get a better look every time that you're out flying. So if you're ready to get started, let's jump into the first section. So this is the AVATA 2. Now, it's a very simple drone, and everything is very compact, which makes it super good for FPV flying because you could fly right through things because of the small form factor. Now on the front, you'll see the protective case. So you're just gonna press on the top and bottom and pull it straight out. And this protective case is used to keep the camera safe when you're transporting it. So on the front, you'll find that there's the camera, and it has a little cage around it to protect it, so if you are to run into something. You'll even notice on the lens itself, there's a little lip on top and bottom. Now this lens is not removable. However, there are little filters that can clip right onto the front of this camera if you do want to add things like ND filters, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. Now looking straight down on the drone, you're gonna see your 4 propellers. And you'll see that there's actually 2 different types of propellers. There's one with an orange dot in the middle, and there's one with no orange dot in the middle. And you'll also see on the arms this orange dot as well. This is because if you do ever need to change out these propellers, you want to make sure to put on the proper propeller on the proper side. There are 2 different styles of propellers depending on which side of the drone it's on and whether it's on the front or back. So if you do need to replace the propellers, make sure you're replacing the right one in the right spot. And to replace these propellers, you'll see that there is 2 tiny screws in the center. You'll just loosen these up, pull the propeller off, and put the new one on. Now also, you'll see around each propeller, there is a propeller guard. Now, mine's cracked because I've taken some pretty hard hits, but that's the point of these guards. They're to protect the propellers so that if you do hit something, it can bounce off and keep flying. And I've crashed both this one and the original AVATA a ton, and I've never actually destroyed a drone. Having these propeller guards is super helpful to just bounce off objects if you do get a little too close. Now on the back of the drone, you'll see where the battery goes in. These batteries have 2 clips on either side, and you'll put them in with the clips on the top side, and you'll push in the battery until you hear a full click. And the battery will sit in there nice and firmly. There's no chance of it falling out. Now to release this battery, you just press on either side and pull straight back. The battery pops right out. Now on the battery itself, there's a light indicator to show you how much charge this battery has. And to turn on your drone, you're gonna press the button once and then hold until all the lights light up, and then you'll hear a beep and the drone will be turned on. Now to turn it off, you just do the reverse. Press once and hold till all the lights turn off and the drone will power down. Now on the back of this drone, you'll find 2 vision sensors. This allows the drone to be able to detect the ground so that you can easily take off and land, and also be able to just hover in place whenever you need to stop the drone from actually flying. Now on one side of the drone, you'll find a little flap, and in here you'll find a USB-C and also your micro SD card slot. So if you were to just plug this drone in directly to a power source, you could charge up the drone using this USB-C. This USB-C is also used for pulling the footage off. So if you ever wanted to just pull the footage directly off the internal memory or the micro SD card that's plugged into it, you could plug into a computer using this USB-C and you'll be able to pull that data off. Now, you could also just pull the micro SD card slot out and put that into your computer and pull the footage off that way. However, this drone does have a ton of internal memory, so there's a good chance that you'll want to use that internal memory and not have to deal with a micro SD card. Especially if you fill up your micro SD card, which is something that I've done, then you'll switch over to the internal memory and you'll use this USB-C on the side to be able to pull that data off onto your computer. Now that is everything that you need to know about the drone itself. And so let's jump in to the controller. All right, so next let's dig into the controller. So this is the motion controller that comes with the DJI AVATA 2. And this is a small controller that's easy to hand hold, and you can use it in your left or right hand, but it definitely is more set up for right-handed use. Personally, I'm left-handed, so when I use it, I put it in my left hand, and I just kind of have to touch some of these buttons a little bit differently than they're intended. So what you'll notice right away is that the front, there's a trigger. Now you can pull in and that's gonna make the drone go forward, and you can push back and that's gonna make the drone go backwards. Now this drone, because it's an FPV style drone, its intent is really to fly forwards and then you control it as it flies forwards. And by controlling it, that's how you create these really dynamic shots. However, one of the benefits of using a DJI AVATA 2 is that you can move backwards if you are too close to an object and you need to slowly move backwards. Now you can't fly like super fast backwards using the motion controller. However, it is a cool feature that's included on this controller. Now on the top of the controller, you're gonna find a joystick. Now this allows you to move the drone in the sky, ascending upwards, descending down. So when you're taking off, when you're landing, or if you just need to change the direction, you can use this joystick to be able to manipulate the drone. And the big thing about this motion controller is that you do use wrist motion to be able to control the drone in the sky. Now, when we take the drone off and we start flying it, I'm gonna show you how this works. But basically, you're gonna pivot your wrist left and right to be able to move the drone left and right. And if you wanna go down towards the ground, well, you're gonna push down with your wrist. And if you want the drone to swoop up, you're gonna pull up. So you're using the motion of your wrist left and right, forwards and back, to be able to manipulate the drone as it flies in the air. And then you use the trigger to actually make it fly forward. So the wrist manipulation is pivoting the drone and moving it, and then the trigger is making it go forward. At first, it's a little bit weird to get used to, but after a few flights, you start realizing that you get into this flow state and you just start moving the drone in the sky, and you can really feel how the drone moves because it's following your wrist motion. It's actually a really cool way to fly. Now, also on the top of this controller, you're gonna find this big orange button. This is gonna be how you take off the drone. You're gonna press this, start the propellers, it's gonna take off. And also, when you're flying, you can hit this at any time and it will stop the drone. Now, this is a cool feature because typical FPV drones, you can't just stop them in the sky. They have to continually move. This allows you to stop and hover. So if you want to stop, think about your shot, look around, see if you want to try something different, or if you're just pausing, waiting for your subject to move, this is a great tool. I had a buddy that was flying with this following skiers, and he would pause the drone by hitting the stop button, wait for the skier to get in position, and then hit the button again to allow the drone to start moving so that he could follow the skier when they took off. So it's a really cool feature that really distinguishes the AVATA 2 versus other FPV drones. Now, the other button you're gonna find on your front is your mode and your return to home button. So at any point, you could press and hold this button and the drone's gonna return back to the starting point. Cool feature. This is what all of DJI's drones do. Makes it super easy to take off, fly, and then return home whenever you're done flying. Now the mode button switches between sport and normal mode. Normal mode, slower, it's not super fast. Sport mode, it's very fast. It gives you that really strong FPV feel and the drone whips around. So you could switch it just on the controller depending on how you're flying. Now on the side of the controller, you're gonna find a record button. This is how you're gonna start and stop recording. Also, you're gonna find a dial. This is gonna allow you to change some settings, and when you press on it, you can make a selection. And then the last thing on this controller is your power button on the side. It's just like the drone. You press once and hold, it turns on the controller. You press once and hold again, and it turns off the controller. That is everything with the motion controller. Next, let's talk about this 3 battery charger. Now, this comes with the DJI AVATA 2, and it's an easy way to charge all 3 batteries. They clip in just like your drone. They're not gonna fall out. And it's simple. There's only 2 things on this battery charger. You have a power button and you have a USB-C port. Now this port, you plug in a USB-C, it's gonna start charging up. It'll charge all the batteries. When I've been out here making this video, I have my DJI Power 500 constantly charging this so that I never run out of batteries when I'm out here filming. Kind of a cool way to do it if you think that you're gonna be needing to fly more than 3 batteries. Now, this 3 battery charger could also be used as a power bank. So you could plug in any device, say your phone, to the USB-C, press and hold the power button, and then this will turn on and start outputting a charge to those devices. So it's a great extra way to be able to use this if you do need some extra power for your other devices. All right, so next let's talk about the headset or the goggles, what you're gonna put on your head. This system is very well thought out and super easy to use because you don't need to hook anything to the headset to be able to fly your drone. At first, when you're activating your drone, you're gonna need to plug in your phone using the USB-C to activate it. But once it's activated and you're out flying, you just need to turn on your headset, your controller, and your drone, and you can start flying. So on the actual headset, what you're gonna find is a strap that connects to the battery. Now on the back of the battery, you'll have a dial that allows you to tighten or loosen the straps, which hook onto your head. Now you're also gonna see the 2 antennae. Whenever you're flying, you're gonna wanna pop these up so you get the best signal. And then on the front of your headset, what you're gonna see are these 2 cameras. So when you're actually flying, and anytime you're flying, you could double tap on the left side of your headset, and you're gonna be able to see what's in front of you. You double tap again, and you could go back to the drone view and the menus and all of that. So it's a cool feature to be able to just quickly see what's going on without having to take the headset off. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see 3 dots, and this is your power indicator. On the bottom, you'll find your power button, and it's just like the controller in the drone. You press once and hold until all 4 lights turn on, you'll hear a beep, and then your drone will be turned on. Now above the 4 dots, you're gonna see a joystick and a back button. This is gonna be how you go through all the menus and how you change all of your settings when you're actually in the app and you're working with the drone in the sky. Now inside your headset, you'll have your 2 lenses. DJI provides different sets of lenses depending on what you need for your eyesight to be able to make it clear when you're actually seeing it through the goggles. Now also, there's a sensor and a micro SD card slot right in the center. So when you're out flying, if you wanna be able to see all of your data and record it, you'll put a micro USB-C in here, and every time you're out flying, you can record both what the drone's seeing, but also what the goggles are seeing, so that you could have both of those recordings if that's something you wanna play with. Now at the bottom, you're gonna see these 2 dials. Now these are gonna be how you change the distance between the lenses, and also you could spin them to be able to change the focus. So you'll wanna shift the lenses and twist the knob until everything's perfectly in focus. And you'll see that there's a little indication on the back here between 0 to -6 and +2. And when you rotate this dial, it changes. So you wanna find what looks the clearest before you start flying so that you always have a good experience when you have the headset on. All right, so let's jump into everything that you're gonna see in the goggles when you're flying, the UI. And so I'm gonna jump inside here and I'm gonna explore it all with you. Now, before you get started flying this drone, you need to activate it. So you'll need a cable that connects to your phone, you'll need the headset, you'll need to turn it all on, and then you'll need your phone, and you need to download the DJI Fly app. So you'll connect it, you'll go through the instructions on screen. If you don't have a DJI account set up already, go through, set one of those up. It'll take you through the activation process. And then once the drone is activated, you can unplug this and you don't need to use your phone to be able to fly the drone. However, at any point, if you do want to use your phone, you can always connect it via a cable and use your phone as a screen versus using the headset. This might be a way that you want to fly if you don't want to have the goggles on wherever you're out flying. Or if you want to be able to see what's going on in the goggles and have someone else looking at your phone, well, you can connect a longer cable and be able to have both going on at the same time. Now, there's also a cool feature when you pull down, you could scroll over to live view via Wi-Fi on mobile device. You can click this, and now you can connect via Wi-Fi so that somebody could have a phone with the live view of what's going on, and it could be sent without having this cable attached. So some different ways that you can view the screen when you're out flying. All right, so let's get into the world of this drone and really dig into everything that you're gonna find on the screen and what you're gonna see when you put these on. So when the drone is powered on and you're still on the ground, this is the screen that you're gonna see. You can see that there's a live view of what's going on, and you'll see that there's some things on the screen that give you some information. Wherever I'm pointing this joystick, there's a little dot with a line. And now this only appears when you haven't taken off yet, or when you hit the brake button on the controller. And this allows you to change all of your settings using the motion controller and not having to use the headset. You could either change your settings using the joystick and the back button, or you could use it by pointing this little dot at the different features and using your trigger with a half press to be able to select things. So there's 3 menus that you can access: the top down, the side on the left, and the bottom up. And we'll go into those in a minute, but I just want to show everything that you're seeing on the screen. So you'll have some indications here in the lower right-hand corner. This tells you what's going on with the drone. Right now, I haven't taken off yet, so it just gives me a little warning. Now below that, you're gonna see the battery of the headset, so it's at 94%. You're gonna see how many satellites are connected. Right now I have 20. It's gonna bounce around, 21. Now it's gonna show you which data you're viewing the screen at. Right now it's 22 megabits per second. So that is what you're seeing in the headset. You're gonna be recording the full resolution on the actual camera, but this is showing what the live view is seeing. Next to that, you're gonna see the strength of your signal between the controller and the drone, and also the headset and the drone for a video signal. Next to that, you're gonna have this 0000. This is how much time you have left to fly on your drone. I haven't taken it off, so it's just zeroed out, but when you're flying, this number will tell you how much time you have left. Now, next to that is your battery indicator for the drone itself. So right now I have 81% on the AVATA 2, 94% on the headset. Now, I just got a warning that my aircraft processor is gonna be overheated. So I'm gonna take this off, get it into the air, and we'll continue this. So now I'm flying around, and you could see that as I fly around, it's showing how much time I have left on this battery, and it's gonna bounce around depending on how you're flying. So right now I'm in normal mode. I'm gonna switch over to sport mode, and you're gonna see that this number is gonna drop because I'm using more power. So right now it's showing 11, 10, 9, switch back to normal mode, and it's gonna go back up to probably around 13. So it's just a quick indication to be like, I got roughly 10 minutes left. That's kind of what it's for. So we're gonna pause the drone over here above these flowers, and when I hit the orange button on the controller, it goes into this pause mode, and the aircraft is just gonna hover. So now, we're gonna see a few things over here on the left-hand side. You're gonna see how much space you have between the drone and the ground. So the ground's around 10 feet below me. You're gonna have the distance away and the height away from where you took off from. Now also, you'll have these miles per hour. This is gonna show how fast you're moving either forwards or up, and this is gonna change depending on how you're flying. Now in the far left corner, you're gonna have your indication of mode. Right now it's in normal mode. I could switch that over to sport mode using the mode on the controller. However, because I'm braking, the drone's not doing anything when I move this motion controller around. Even when I use the joystick, it doesn't do anything. So let's go into these different menus so I could show you all the features that you have available. So in the top, we're gonna half press, and it's gonna pull down this menu. Now with any of these, I could also use the headset and pull down on the joystick and pull up to bring it away. And then I press down on the joystick here to make a selection, and then I use the back button to move backwards. Sometimes it's easier to use the headset, but if you just wanna make a quick change, put it into brake, select using the motion controllers. So if you're using your right hand, you don't have to take the hand off to adjust. So let's pull down the menu. On the top menu, you have record. This is gonna record for both the camera and also the headset. Now next to that is your enhanced display. And you can see when I turn this on and off, it gets brighter and it gets a little crisper. So I like to fly with this on just so it's easier to see what you're doing. Now head tracking is pretty cool. You can turn this on, and now when I take it out of braking, I could use my head to look around what the drone is seeing. So as it's just standing there in the sky and I'm not moving it, I can look around and see what's going on and see the area that I'm around. And then you're gonna fly using that dot out in the distance, and as I pull, it's gonna move towards that dot, but I could still use my head and look around, even though the drone is flying in this one direction. I'm gonna hit brake again, pull down my top menu, turn off head tracking. So just an interesting feature to be able to look around as like an experience, like to see what's going on around you and have the drone move in a single direction without affecting the drone moving in that direction. Let's pull down this menu again. I already showed you the share to live stream via Wi-Fi, and then there's also the easy acro mode. So we'll dig into the easy acro later. These are just some fun moves like flips and things that you can do automatically using this drone. And then last is the brightness of the screen, so you could bring this up or you could bring this down. Now let's put this menu away. I'm gonna switch to using the headset. I'm gonna pull right on the headset, and now you have this deeper menu on the side. At the top, you're gonna have your status. So this shows all the information about the DJI AVATA 2. You have your album. So this is all your previous recorded footage. You could go through and see all your photos and videos in here. Next, you have your transmission. This is where you can adjust some different settings when it comes to what you're viewing on the headset and also what your audience is seeing. There aren't really any settings that I've had to adjust when I'm out flying this drone. Now, the next underneath transmission are your deeper settings. So you have safety, control, camera, display, and about. Under safety, you have your max flight altitude, you have your max flight distance, and so you could set limits so the drone won't go beyond these. You have your return to home altitude, and so basically the drone will fly to this altitude and then return home. You could update your home point at any time when you're flying, and so when you click this, your home point's gonna update to wherever the drone is at that moment. Now you could calibrate your compass, your IMU, and your goggles IMU, and so if you're having any issues and you need to recalibrate, that's where you could do it here. And then the last button down here is camera view before loss. So you could see exactly what the camera saw before the signal cuts out. And so basically I can't show you while it's recording, but it shows you the last 30 seconds of what the drone saw before you lost it. So if you were to run into something and the signal cuts out, you could at least see what was going on right before that happened. Okay, so I had to land the drone to be able to show you this next feature, which is called escape beeping. So if at any point your drone falls out of the sky, maybe it hits something or you lose it in like the tall brush around here, you could turn on this feature, escape beeping, and the drone's gonna start beeping. You can hear it over there. It's just beep, 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 beep. So you could use the sound to try and find your drone. Now I'm gonna turn this off. Now the other features you have in the safety is your advanced. So you can tell the drone what to do when it loses the signal. Mine's set to return to home, but you can have it hover and you can have it land. And then there's an emergency propeller stop. So when you turn this on, you could press the lock button 4 times and the drone propellers will stop in case of an emergency. Let's take the drone back off. So I'm gonna double click the orange button to start the propellers. I'm gonna fly in normal mode, and then I'm gonna press and hold. The drone will take off, and then I can start flying using the motion controller. I'm gonna brake it again, and let's go back into the menu. So we're gonna go back into our settings, go to control, and now this is everything about controlling the drone. So you have your motion controller, and this will show you the different features that you have for the motion controller. So there's some instructions here on how to use it, and you could also switch which hand that you're flying in, so if you're right-handed or left-handed. Now, there's some gain tuning. Now, this is super useful if you want to change any of the speeds that your drone is flying in normal or sport mode. And so go through here and tweak these if you want them to move a little bit faster. And so, for example, I could go to sport mode, and I could change my backwards speed to 7.8 miles per hour so that it'll fly backwards faster than 1 miles per hour. And then the last button is your RC calibration. Click your back button to get out of this menu. Now you can also change your gimbal's pitch speed. So this is how fast the gimbal moves up and down. It could be slow, normal, or fast. I just leave mine on normal when I'm flying. Now next, there's a gimbal calibration. If you have any issues with your gimbal, you can calibrate it here. You could set your units. I use miles per hour. If you want to use metric, well, you could set that here as well. Now there's a turtle mode. So if your drone ever flips upside down when you're flying, and you need to flip it over, you go in here and click the turtle mode, and the drone will automatically flip for you. Now there's also a beginner mode, makes it so that it limits what you can do, so that if you're a true beginner, it makes it a lot easier to fly to get the feel of how everything works. And then there's also a tutorial here for your goggles. So that's everything under control, and next is camera. And this is everything about the camera itself. And there's a lot of information in here, and a lot of these I'll go over in a minute because there's actually another place where you can access all of these. However, in here you could set your grid lines. it comes with it off, but I like to fly with my thirds on, or you could fly with a center marker. It just depends on what you want to use when you're out flying. So I'm going to turn on the lines, and then you can see that they're displayed when you're out flying. Now also in camera, you could show your center point. So you can turn this on or off. You're going to see your storage, and this is where you'll switch between SD card or your internal storage. And also this is where you could format your SD card or your internal storage. Now under advanced camera settings, this first option is to record both what's on the drone and also what you're seeing here in the headset. So I have mine set to both because I always want both. And you could turn on camera view recording here as well. Now, auto record on takeoff or landing. This is a cool setting so that every time you take off, the drone will start recording. Well, apparently my drone was almost out of battery. It's at 5%. So it was auto going into this landing mode where it's gonna slowly descend and just land. So let me swap out the battery. So I'm gonna double press on the orange button, start the propellers. It'll pop up with this safety tip. I'm gonna fly normal mode, double press again, motor start, press and hold. The drone's gonna take off. It's gonna auto start recording for me, and I'm gonna fly it over here again. And then I'm gonna hit the brake button, which is the orange button. And now the drone's just gonna hover as we finish up talking about all this on-screen data. So we're back in the advanced camera settings. You could set up your color here. I like to shoot with D-Log-M. This is 10-bit D-Log-M, so it's better to color grade. But if you're not gonna color grade, I would just shoot in the standard. Now underneath that, you have sharpness and noise reduction. So you could turn this up or you could turn this down. If you're looking for more of a cinematic shot, you might bring your sharpness down and then you could apply it yourself later in editing. Right now, mine is just set to 0, but I'll tweak these depending on what I'm filming. Now also there is an anti-flicker mode. I just have mine set to auto, so if there's flickering in your footage, you could set this. And then there's also this option for video subtitles. Now under display, this is everything that you're seeing in the headset. So your brightness, your display scaling, so you could change this. And you could make it smaller or bigger. I just keep mine at 100%. There's a button for home point, so that whenever you're flying, you see an H on the horizon, that's your home point. There's a button for goggles defogged, which when this is turned on, there's a little fan that's gonna continue to run to keep it so you don't get fogged up in the goggles. There's a real view. You could switch between 2D or 3D. And then you could also set up picture in picture. And picture in picture allows you to see what's going on in front. So I could see what the drone's doing over there while also still seeing the drone shot. So that's everything in that deeper menu, but let me show you what the last menu is when you pull up on the screen. So when you pull up, this is your camera settings. And over here on the far left, that switches between photo and video mode. You have your auto or manual mode. So if you want to fly full manual, control your camera settings, you'll switch this over to manual. Right now, mine's just set to auto because that's the easiest way to film this kind of video. I'm just trying to get a good image. Auto works pretty well, but if you're in a situation where the exposure and the color is fluctuating, switch it over to manual and you can have full control over your image. Now you could set your ISO, your shutter, and your exposure compensation, which is EV. So if you're constantly getting too bright of an image, you might make this like -0.7, -1, or if you're constantly getting too dark of an image, when you're in auto, you could make it +1 or +0.7, or it just basically changes what the camera thinks is the best exposure and then adjusts it by how much you set here. So it could be plus or minus. Now next to that, you have white balance. So mine is just set to 55 Kelvin, but you could have this set to auto, or you could pick a specific Kelvin. Now you have your aspect ratio, your video quality. So you could change out your aspect ratio or your video quality. Now you also have your camera field of view. There is normal, wide, and ultra wide. You have your auto ISO limit. So this is the highest that the ISO will fluctuate. So you could change this. And then you have your stabilization. Right now this is set to rock steady, which will show the camera moving left and right. But you could also use horizon balance, which keeps the horizon completely level so it looks more like a traditional drone. And then you could all still fly in this FPV way, but it just gives a different look to your footage. Now you could also turn off the stabilization if you do want to take it through a different software on your computer and stabilize it that way. Personally, the easiest way to fly is just keep the stabilization on, and then the footage is ready to go to start editing with. Now, when you turn it into horizon steady, you're gonna notice that you won't have access to a wider field of view because it is punching in on the footage and stabilizing it so that you don't have this side-to-side motion. With Rocksteady, you have access to all the different fields of view. So that's everything in the headset. So let me take you through the whole process of how you actually fly this drone to be able to get some good looking footage. Okay, so now we've gone through everything. It's time to start flying. So first thing you want to do is obviously turn everything on. And so you just want to make sure everything's connected and ready to go. Make sure there's no snakes around me because there is one right over there. Now to take the drone off, you're gonna double click on your brake button and then the propellers will start spinning, but the drone's just gonna stay here. And then you're gonna press and hold the orange button and the drone's gonna ascend into the sky. Now after it takes off and it's hovering, you could start pulling the trigger to move forward, or you could use the joystick and push it up to keep going higher into the sky. So let's take a look at what we're seeing. So you can see on screen here, everything looks normal. We're ready to go. Gonna double press on the orange. You're gonna have this safety tip pop up. So I'm gonna fly in normal mode, or you could set no position hold mode. And then once that screen disappears, you'll double tap again. Motors are starting. Press and hold. The drone's gonna take off and just hover. And so you can see, here's my view. I can see the drone. I can see the camera in the corner. And now I can just pull the trigger and the drone will start moving forward. Now, where are you? You're right there. Hi. Okay. So to fly this drone, it's fairly simple. You're gonna pull the trigger and the drone is gonna move towards the circle that you're seeing in the middle of the screen. So as I pull the trigger, the drone is moving towards that circle in the middle of the screen. Now, if I pull up with my wrist, the drone's gonna go up into the sky. And if I push down with my wrist, it's gonna go towards the ground. So you're gonna move your wrist up and down to do this kind of roller coaster effect where it's going up into the sky and then back down. And how much you pull on this trigger is how fast the drone's gonna move. Now, if you wanna move the drone left or right, you're gonna dip the controller left or right. So you're gonna twist with the wrist, like a twisting, like a doorknob. So I'm gonna twist to the left as I pull the trigger, and you can see that now I'm spinning in this left-hand circle and it's banking. Now I'm gonna twist like I'm twisting a doorknob to the right, and it's gonna go in a right-hand circle. And so you'll move a combination of moving forward with the trigger, pulling up, and then twisting your wrist left or right as you're flying to be able to control the drone. So let's just do a quick flight down this path. So I'm gonna go over to this bush. I'm gonna twist my wrist to the left as I come around it, and I'm gonna stop and hover. I'm gonna hit the brake. So my goal is to fly down this path and then come up and around to the right. So let's start. I'm gonna pull on the trigger. I'm gonna keep the controller level because I'm just staying right along the path. And now as I come to the end of this path, I'm gonna wanna move to the right. So I'm gonna twist to the right. Now I wanna go up. So I'm gonna tilt the controller back. It's gonna ascend into the sky while turning right. And I'm doing like a big helix motion up into the sky. Now let's do the opposite. Let's go down and pull to the left. Now it's gonna do the opposite move. So it's gonna be going towards the ground while banking to the left. And now I'm gonna stop at this tree. So we're looking straight at this tree. I'm gonna brake it. So I'm just gonna use the joystick on top now. So let's turn off the brake. I'm just looking straight out at this tree. Now if I push up on the joystick, the drone's gonna ascend into the sky. Now if I pull down on this joystick, the drone's gonna come towards the ground. Now if I pull right on this joystick, it's gonna slide to the right. And if I pull left on this joystick, it's gonna slide to the left. So you could still control the drone up and down and do these sliding motions using the joystick, and then the trigger moves you forward. Pulling back on the trigger is gonna move you backwards. And then up and down, forward wrist motion, and then side to side pivots the drone, which causes you to do this flying motion where it's banking. Now, anytime if you want to move faster, you hit the mode button which is gonna flip it into sport mode. And then the drone's gonna move much faster. And at any time, hit the brake button, the drone will stop and hover, just hang out there in the sky. Now, when you're done flying and you wanna land it, let's bring the drone back this way. Now, anytime you wanna land your drone, you could just press and hold the orange button and the drone's gonna make an auto landing and you don't have to control it. You could also pull down on the joystick and the drone will land as well. So the orange button, super useful, brakes, but also takes off and it lands. And that's basically how you fly the DJI AVATA 2 using the motion controller. Now from here, basically you just need to practice learning how this drone moves and really playing around with flying it in the sky. So playing with the different motions of twisting your wrist and moving it up and down and pulling the trigger and moving backwards, and then also using the ascend and sliding to really see how you could position this drone to get these cool FPV shots. You have a lot of potential using the motion controller. You don't have to fly manually, but if you do want to fly full manual, there is another style of controller with the 2 thumbsticks that flies like a typical FPV drone, and you can fly this in full manual mode. It's just a different way to fly. It's also a little bit more advanced. It's going to take a lot more practice. So if you're just trying to get these FPV shots using this motion controller and flying in this way, you could get some really good looking footage. Now, word of caution, there's no sensors on the front of this drone. So you got to be careful. You will run into things if you're flying at something and you hit it. Now what I want to show you is the different ways that you could use this drone to shoot. So the wider field of view versus the more narrow, and also the different levels of horizon stabilization that you have. So this is rock steady with the ultra wide mode. And so I'm going to fly the same path with each mode just so you could see how much of a difference there is between them. So this is wide with the rock steady. So this is normal with the rock steady. Now this is horizon steady. So this is going to keep your horizon level no matter how the drone is twisting in the sky. So it gives you a completely different look when you're flying that feels more like a normal drone, but you're moving in this FPV way. Now you also have 2 modes. So I'm going to turn on sport mode. So you could click the mode button on the controller and then it goes faster. So this is on wide with rock steady, but in sport mode. And you can see how much faster this is when you put these side by side. Now with this drone, there's not a whole lot of automation because it's an FPV drone. However, there are these acro shots. So if you pull down on the screen, you can go into the acro mode. And these are like quick shots on another drone, but they're basically easy ways to be able to do flips and be able to do this 180 rotation. Now in the 180 degree turn mode, you're gonna fly forwards using the trigger, and then you're gonna pull left or right on that joystick, and it's gonna flip around and do a 180 degree flip and then start flying backwards. As soon as you stop pulling down on the trigger, it's gonna stop moving backwards on the end of this shot. Kind of a cool move if you wanna like go near someone and then flip around them and move backwards. Like it's kind of fun to play around with. It might be something useful. Now the flip mode, so you're gonna pull on the trigger to fly forward, and then you're gonna pull left or right, up or down on that joystick, and then the drone's gonna automatically do a flip. So just a fun way to fly if you wanna do some flips. That's basically it for automation. The only other thing is return to home, which is obviously a safety feature, but at any point during your flight, press and hold the return to home button. The drone will ascend into the sky to this level that you set it at, and then it's gonna fly all the way back to the home point, and then it's gonna drop down and land. Okay, so we've gone through everything on how to fly this drone, how all the features work, all of that. Now, how do you actually get some good footage out of this drone? Because flying it is half the battle, but the other part of it is getting good looking footage that you could use in your videos. Well, there's a few levers that we can pull to be able to get better looking footage out of the AVATA 2. Now, the first is gonna be ND filters. And some people love the look of it, some people don't really care, but to get to more of the cinematic feel, you could use an ND filter to add motion blur into your shot. And motion blur is when the image is blurry. So when I freeze this frame here, you could see that there is blur happening versus this frame here, which is shot without an ND filter, there's no blur. And that's because the shutter speed is super high. And so putting an ND filter on is basically like sunglasses for your camera. And when you're flying in this way, you see lots of motion because you have motion blur in your shot. So this is one tool that you can use. And how you're gonna use this is basically you'll put on the ND filter, you're gonna flip the drone into manual mode, and you'll set your shutter speed at double that of your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you put it at 1/60th. If you're shooting at 24, you put it at 1/50th. If you're shooting at 60 frames per second, put it at 1/120th. And then what will happen is there'll be more motion blur when all of your other settings are adjusted to be able to get proper exposure. Now, another tool that you could use is by just flying full manual. So setting your exposure so that there's no fluctuation in your shot. Now, this is good when you're shooting something like a sunset. So when you're flying in and out of different locations, you want to make sure that you have a consistent shot from end to end, and you don't see like the image go bright and then back dark and then bright and then back dark. So by controlling your image, you're going to be able to get better looking footage so you don't see a variance in your exposure or your white balance by setting a specific white balance when you're out flying. Now, the third way to get good looking footage is by flying close to objects. This is a big factor with FPV footage. You want to get closer to objects because you are flying so fast and you're flying in this POV way. You want to fly closer to objects. With another style of drone, big open landscapes look really good, but with an FPV, if you fly and get a big open landscape, it's like, it's all right. It's not that exciting. But when you're really close to objects and you're flying around and you're moving up, down, left, right, and going through objects, that's where FPV drone footage really stands out. So one of the things that you're going to want to learn is how to fly closer to objects and do it in a safe way so that you could get these dynamic looking shots. And the fourth way that you're going to be able to get good looking footage from this drone is really follow the story. At the end of the day, the story is what's most important to what you're crafting. Throwing FPV footage randomly into your video doesn't make your video better. However, if there's a scene where using an FPV drone is gonna make sense and the style of footage really makes sense, well, then it's gonna enhance what you're crafting. And so, for example, I was out doing some overlanding with my buddies, and there was this moment where we were stuck on this hillside with all this sand, and we wanted to amp up the energy for this moment.
Hey guys, what do you think?
So we're coming down this trail and there's this really cool spot that we want to go film. I think it might work well for what we're trying to do here, but there's a giant hill in the way.
So instead of having like a drone up in the sky just watching what happens, having a drone in the space flying next to the trucks really ramped up the energy of what was going on and enhanced the scene to really put the viewer in the perspective of what was happening as we were trying to get up this hill and get through the sand. So the things that you'll play around with is the speed and also how you fly it through and around objects. That's going to help enhance your story. But always think through when you're filming, will this help tell the story? Or is this style of footage actually gonna hurt the story? It's distracting having this FPV style where the horizon's dipping and you're moving really fast. Sometimes it's not needed. Sometimes you just want a normal style drone up in the sky, just getting a nice wide shot, moving really slowly. Different styles of shots are gonna work for different things that you're filming and different scenes that you're filming. FPV has a very distinct style. It's fun. I love shooting FPV. And if you're someone who's just flying FPV drones for fun, then this really doesn't apply to you. This is just if you're someone who really wants to use FPV footage in other styles of videos. But if you're someone who's just going out, having fun, wanting to fly your drone, well, take it off. Go have fun. Go fly through and around objects because it is a ton of fun to fly this drone. And you don't have to have a purpose for the footage. You could just want to fly the drone and play around with it, flying through different objects.
Now for this next section, I want to dig into how you color grade D-Log-M footage. So if you're someone who wants to get the most dynamic range out of this camera, you're going to want to shoot in D-Log-M and then color grade in your editing software. Now the tools that I'm using are all in Final Cut Pro, but you're also going to find these tools in a lot of other editing softwares. And so my goal with this is to show you the process that I go through every time I'm color grading my DJI AVATA 2 footage, to make it super easy to be able to play with your D-Log-M and get the most out of the color out of this camera. Because you do get 10-bit footage out of the DJI AVATA 2, which gives you a lot more room to be able to color grade, be able to get some interesting looks with your footage. So here's some D-Log-M footage from a recent trip that I went on. You can see there is a wide range of exposures because I'm filming the sun, and there's these really dark sections around here in the foreground. Now I have a tool pulled up called a Luma waveform. Now when you look at an image in D-Log-M, what you're going to notice is that it's flat and also there's not a lot of saturation. And so the first thing that you want to do is adjust your exposure and your contrast. So I have a tool pulled up right here. It's called a Luma waveform. And this shows all your exposure values from 0 being black and 100 being white. And so you can see the darker sections of this image are very lifted so that you have more information. And then the only part that's overexposing at 100% is the sun, which makes sense because it's such a bright object on the horizon. So when I color grade, I first start with Luma, and this shows in the top right corner, this is white, and down here in the lower left-hand corner is black. So this is all your exposure values in a line from the darkest parts all the way up to the brightest parts. And the first thing that I typically do is I adjust my contrast. So you can add points on a curve and then you can make adjustments. So I can bring this up and you can see how the highlights get super overexposed, or I can bring this down and they get super weirdly underexposed. You can do that with the mids, you can do that with the black point. And so what you're essentially doing is you want to add contrast into the shot. I use a Luma waveform because I can see a value of where 0 is on the graph. And typically with a curve, what I'll do is I'll add 3 points. One in the middle, one in the lower third, and one in the upper third. And I'll bring down the darkest parts of the image closer to 0. And I also sometimes will pull this point in to be able to add more information into those darker parts of the image. And then I crush those darker parts of the image down towards black, which is at the bottom here. Now for the highlights, I'm gonna bring this up slightly. I don't need to take it all the way up here and overexpose. I wanna add a little bit of exposure into those highlights. And then with my midpoint, I might adjust it depending on the shot. For this one, I'm gonna stay right around there, so kind of where it started. So now this image has contrast. Now the next thing we wanna do is add saturation. So I'll pull up my color wheels, and I'll just pull up my global saturation for the entire image. Now typically with D-Log-M footage, all you're gonna need to do is give a little bit of saturation, and then the shot's gonna look pretty solid. And then I'll play back the shot, and it looks pretty good with just a little bit of contrast and a little bit of saturation. Now let's do this on another shot. So here is a different angle. There's no sun in the shot, so when we look at our Luma waveform, you can see that all of the information for this shot is between close to 0 and 75. So this shot was exposed a little bit darker than the previous shot. Now I could either use the curves like I showed you last time, or I could use the color wheels and just use my highlights, midtones, and shadows. There's multiple ways to be able to do the same thing when you're color grading, and it just depends on which tools you want to use when you're working. So for this, I'm going to pull up the highlights. So they're stretching closer to 100. I'm going to bring them just a little bit lower. And then I'll take my shadows and bring those down to make the darkest parts of the image more black. And then I'll play around with my midtones. So the image looks a little bit bright, so I'm going to bring down those midtones because this is going to add more contrast into the shot while keeping my highlights towards the 100% white. Now when I turn this color wheel on and off, you'll see now this image instantly has contrast. It's also going to add some saturation naturally when you add contrast into the shot. But you can also boost your saturation and just give it a little bit more pop depending on what kind of look you're going for. So now just with highlights, midtone, shadows, I've created a shot that looks much nicer than the original log footage, and you're seeing all the exposure in the sky and in all these highlights. Now another tool that we can use to color grade is called a LUT. And these are pre-built looks that already have contrast and saturation, and then you get creative LUTs which have a unique look and style. So I've created a set of D-Log-M conversion LUTs. And so you can see with this D-Log-M conversion, it instantly adds all the contrast, all the saturation, and it might even be a little bit too saturated. So you could just pull down the saturation a tad from this LUT. So using LUTs is a quick way to just add your contrast and saturation and make the shot look good. And then from here, you can add on a creative look. So I've created a set of drone LUTs that create some interesting effects with the colors. And this one called Yucca makes everything a little bit more yellowish because it was built for more desert footage. And it just gives a different look. And you can bring these on super strong, and then you could dial back the percentage to where you think it looks best. So if we're at 50%, I can turn this on and off. You can see that it shifts the colors and gives you just an interesting look on your footage, depending on the kind of project that you're working on. So working with LUTs is a quick way to correct your footage so that it looks good, and then go through and give you a creative look. But you could also just go through and manually color grade your footage, whatever workflow makes the most sense for you, and what's gonna be easiest when you're editing.
The DJI AVATA 2 is a super fun drone to fly. Hopefully this gets you up and flying fast so that you can take off and create some really cool FPV footage without having to do a ton of practice to get these shots. For me, I love the way that the FPV footage looks, especially when it's integrated nicely into a story where the FPV footage really fits in. There's some really cool ways that you could use this footage to really show a different perspective and be able to tell your story in a different way and really add a different style of footage to your storytelling arsenal. And if you are someone who makes outdoor and adventure style videos or travel videos or anything like that, then make sure you head over to the Creator Film School, which is my course all around how to become an adventure creator. And so what I teach is everything that you need to know to make awesome looking videos that tell a story, and ultimately that can build an audience here on YouTube so that you can make a career out of producing these videos. And so if this is something that you're interested in, make sure you head down the description. I'll put a link to where you can check out the Creator Film School, everything that I offer in there. And also, if you're interested in my drone LUTs, I'll put those in the description as well. Now, let me know in the comments what you're gonna use your DJI AVATA 2 drone for. And if you wanna see any other videos about using this as a storytelling tool, let me know in the comments. But next, you should check out this video right here, which goes through a complete breakdown of how to make an adventure video from start to finish. I'll see you over there.